The greatest injustice is done to my people is done by the way of infection. Killing us slowly, erasing our history, done by the way of deception. God, do you know? God, do you know what you are? God, do you know what you are? Goddess, do you know? Goddess, do you know what you are? Goddess, do you know what you are? God, do you know? God, do you know what you are? God, do you know what you are? Goddess, do you know? Goddess, do you know?
Mae Mallory was a leading figure in the movement for black liberation in the 1960s, and especially known as an advocate of the right for black people to armed self-defense. Mallory was born in Macon, Georgia on June 9, 1927. She later went to live in New York City with her mother in 1939. In 1956, Mallory was a founder and spokesperson of the Harlem 9, a group of African-American mothers who protested the inferior and inadequate conditions in segregated New York City schools. The group sought to transfer their children to integrated schools that they felt offered higher quality resources. Harlem 9 activism included lawsuits against the city and state, filed with the help of the NAACP. By 1959, this campaign escalated to public protests and a 162-day boycott involving 10,000 parents. The boycott campaign did not win formal support from the NAACP, but it was, however, assisted by leaders such as Ella Baker, Adam Clayton Powell, and endorsed by important black newspapers such as the Amsterdam News. While the children were engaged in another boycott in 1960, the campaign established some of the first freedom schools of the civil rights movement to educate them. New York City retaliated against the mothers, trying and failing to prosecute them for negligence. In 1960, Mallory and the Harlem 9 won their lawsuit, and the Board of Education allowed them and over 1,000 other parents to transfer their children to other schools. That year, the Board of Education announced a general policy of open enrollment, and 1,000 more black children transferred to integrated schools over the next 5 years. Overall, however, integration in the city was challenged by the practice of white flight. We should note that these Harlem parents did not want their children going to integrated schools because they felt that white people were better than them, but because they had better facilities in the schools. Mallory supported Robert F. Williams, the Monroe, North Carolina NAACP chapter leader and author of Negroes with Guns.
I made a statement that if the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution cannot be enforced in this social jungle called Dixie, it is time that Negroes must defend themselves even if it is necessary to resort to violence. That there is no law here, and there is no need to take the white taxes to the courts because they will be free, and that the federal government is not coming to the aid of people who are oppressed, and it is time for Negro men to stand up and be men, and that if it's necessary for us to die, we must be willing to die. If it's necessary for us to kill, we must be willing to kill.
When 17 freedom riders came to Monroe to support Williams, a dramatic debate developed between the ideologies of passive resistance, which the freedom riders supported, and Williams' armed self-defense. Williams warned the brave young idealists that racists would confront passive resistors with violence. When the tension was greatest in August 1961, an elderly white couple, the Steagles, drove into the neighborhood to protect them from the possible wrath of the community. Williams offered shelter in his home where he, his wife Mabel Williams, and Mae Mallory were preparing food for the Freedom Riders. The Steagles gratefully accepted his offer. After 2 hours, the neighborhood was less tense and the Steagles left. Later, this same couple testified that they had been held against their will. The state brought indictments of kidnapping against Mallory and Williams and charges of complicity against 3 others. Facing what they knew would be an unfair racist trial, Rob Williams and Mabel Williams escaped to a young socialist nation of Cuba, where Williams and his wife were embraced warmly by the Cuban government and people and became local celebrities, eventually hosting a very important show by Rob Williams and his wife called Radio Free Dixie. While the Williams family fled to Cuba for political asylum and later to China, Mae Mallory stayed in the United States and went to Cleveland, Ohio. 2 years later, Mallory was extradited from Ohio to North Carolina, where she was given a 16 to 20-year sentence for the kidnapping case. Mallory's 1961 call from jail to Workers' World Party resulted in the establishment of a Monroe Defense Committee office in Harlem and one in Cleveland. On February 21, 1965, Mallory was present at the assassination of Malcolm X at the Audubon Ballroom. In April 1965, she was instrumental in a Times Square protest against the 1965 United States occupation of the Dominican Republic. On August 8th, she spoke at an anti-Vietnam War rally. She was an organizer of the 6th Pan African Congress held in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania in 1974. And in 1974, she lived in Mwanza, Tanzania.